Alright, hello. As I said, I'm going to be showing music theory and drumming. Just a small introduction, nothing too fancy until the last rhythm, which is something that you see in like a metal song. So, to start off, this is your basic drum beat. It's something that you play when you're learning drums. It's really simple. We're just keeping time with the hi-hat, which is this X above the top line of the staff. This is just playing eighth notes. Then we have our snare drum, marking time on 2 and 4, and we have our bass drum on 1 and 3. So this is like as simple a rhythm as it gets. This is something that you would learn when you're playing drums, but you wouldn't really hear in a song because it's not very fancy and it doesn't really have any accents to it. So here's what this one sounds like, but don't plan on hearing this anywhere. Alright, so once you got this one down when you're learning drums, then you'd move on to this next one over here. It's just as easy in most people's opinions, but it is the next step up from here. It's just the same rhythm except you're changing where you play your bass drum, basically just to add accents to the melody of the song. And here's what this one would sound like. Alright, so now you got these first two down, and you want to go for something a little bit fancier. You're not really sure where to go. This is where you'd end up. Adding some 16th note accents with your snare drum, um, and then some more fancy accents with your bass drum. You have an open hi-hat in here, which is what this X marks with the circle above it is when you lift your foot off the hi-hat. Um, so yeah, here we go. Alright, so this is something that you could actually see in a song. Maybe not play this slow because this is more rhythm for like a punk song, and punk songs are usually played pretty fast. But I mean, either of these rhythms are something you could still see in a song, but yeah, this first one not so much. Uh, so these rhythms were all played at 120 beats per minute, which is like your average tempo. Not necessarily for songs, but it's just like considered the average tempo. So this next like set of rhythms is something that you would actually hear in a song. This is a metal beat that I came up with. Um, it's fairly complicated as far as the rhythms that we've been hearing go, but it's not nearly as complicated as something you could actually see or hear, rather, in metal songs. But for the purpose of this video, I made it relatively simple just to understand. So this one's played at 180 beats per minute. Metal songs are typically faster. You might see them 200 beats per minute, 300 beats per minute, 350 plus. Depends on the song and the genre. So what's new in this rhythm that we haven't seen yet? We have the ride cymbal, which is on the top staff, or the top line on the staff. So that's going to be keeping time for us. We have a double bass pedal, which doesn't really matter because you can't see the person drumming. But this would be played with a double bass pedal because we're playing so quickly. So double bass pedals where you have two pedals on one bass drum, so you're using both your left and right feet. Then in measures 3 and 4 here we have blast beats, which is a rhythm that you'd see in metal drumming. Basically a blast beat is where the snare drum is played half as often as what you're keeping time on. So in this case we're keeping time on the crash cymbal, which is the star up here. So our snare drum is playing just as often as that on 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then in this next measure, our snare drum is playing twice as often, so on 1 and 2 and etc. And basically that's what a blast beat is. And then you'll notice that our bass drum in these two measures are playing eighth notes here and then doubling it and playing 16th notes here. In this next measure, I slowed it down. We no longer are playing a blast beat. Our snare drum has dropped off on these first two counts. Our bass drum is a lot more scarce these next few measures, and then before it ends, I build it up and end it in a fill. So here's what this series of rhythms sounds like. Alright, so there you go. There's your Music Theory Introduction to Drumming. This is what it looks like on paper. This is what drummers have to read if they are reading. I know a lot of drummers just play by ear, which is fine. I do that too, but this is what you would see if you were looking on paper. So thank you for listening.